I would like to talk for a while about the movie that is not so often being discussed, but I like the movie very much, and that's Bottle Shock. Mm-hmm. It's based on a true story, is it?
Absolutely true story, yeah. I was playing Stephen Spurrier, who's a real person who really did all that, yeah.
Did you meet him?
I spoke to him on the phone, and he reminded me that we had met, which I'd forgotten, in Italy some years before.
Well, we should say maybe not everyone has seen the movie, that it's a movie about wine, about American wine.
It's a very famous story which made the cover of Time magazine. He was running something called l'Académie du Vin in Paris, and he wanted to advertise it more. So he decided to have a competition back in the 1970s with American white and red wines versus French. Right, red and white wines, and it was a blind tasting, so all the bottles were wrapped. Nobody knew which was which, and the judges were all very famous French chefs and sommeliers, and America won both the red and the white wine, so it was, you know, quelle horreur to the French.
And I guess it must be wonderful shooting.
Well, it was, except that we shot it in Sonoma, pretending to beat Paris. So it was actually insane, the final competition, because it was taking place in the open air, where, of course, all those white wines would have been ruined because it was so hot. But, you know, that's the movies.
Do you have some still bottles left in your cellar?
From the film?
Yeah.
I
should have some.
I do have some. It was Chateau Montelena that won the white wine competition, and yes, I do have some of that.
Yeah.
Very good it is, too.
I'm sure it is. I guess after Harry Potter, you did a lot of discussions and I guess also Q&As. And
no, I've never talked much about Harry Potter.
No.
It's true.
Really?
Yeah, well, at the time, the character, his story was so, it was very unclear where he was going, and there was a lot of mystery surrounding it. So I always refused to discuss it publicly. Now it's over, it's a different thing a bit. Although there is now a whole generation of children reading the books who are still on book 3 and don't know what's happening. And the sensible parents are the ones that don't let them watch the videos until they've read the books.
Yeah.
And I'm very aware of the fact that those books, it's not invade children's imaginations, but they live. You watch a child reading one of those books and they are lost inside the book. It's a very rare privilege to be part of that. And I was very protective of the children, really.
Sure.
And just saying, I'm not talking about this because they believe in what they're watching, and I'm not going to give anything away.
Because what I was thinking, that the kids' audience, they don't pretend anything. They are really pretty straight. And I guess, what were their reactions? Or what are their reactions if you recognize you? If they recognize
Mostly
you
they don't.
On the street? Or
no, because I knew, it's a bit like Ralph Fiennes and I, we both knew that we had a pretty good disguise.
Yeah.
You know, he really has a nose. Just CGI removes it. Yeah. And I don't go around with black hair and black contact lenses. So it's, mostly children don't recognize. They only know if they see the black hair.
What kind of books did you read when you've been a kid?
I wasn't a great reader as a child. I would read whatever I was, being told to read at school. So, it would be Dickens, or I guess there would be the equivalent, because I like getting lost inside a big, long tale. But pretty soon, when I got to be at school and we were studying English, it was always set books. So there was no time to read in a kind of relaxed way. And also I suppose my activity was to draw rather than read.
I know you were the only one from the cast who knew more than the others about your character.
It's actually not true. I only knew a very small vague piece of information which wasn't very specific. It just allowed me to think that he was a little more complicated. But I knew no more than anybody else, really.
Well, I was just thinking if Jo Rowling would give you this information if you wouldn't ask.
She wouldn't.
She wouldn't?
No, and I did ask.
But it's quite important for the character you played to know.
Yeah, but it's not her business to worry about that. She's going to just sit there and be glad that the movies are being made and make sure the script is something she agrees with. But when I asked to talk to her, she was happy to do it.
So you think she wouldn't tell you? Huh?
Well, she wouldn't give me any strong pieces of information. Yeah. She just gave me a small clue that he might not be all he seemed. That's all.
Nowadays, you are not only a successful actor, but a successful director as well. Do you think you have more understanding for other directors now than you had before?
It's an incredibly difficult job.
It is.
Because, you know, when you're directing in the theatre, there's you and the actors, and then it's on. Directing in the cinema also involves fundraising, getting the money together.
It's a big part of it, I guess.
It's a huge part of before you can even begin. And then when you've made the film, then you're dealing with distributors and producers and publicity. So the job reinvents itself all the time. The plus side, of course, is that when you're making a film, you have incredible support from a crew who are all brilliant at their jobs, because if they weren't, they would be fired. And that's not the same in the theatre, where you're absolutely right. You go, working with an idiot now, so I will save my own skin. But that's really not true in the cinema. Yeah. And I think that the fact that you have amazing crews behind the camera or on sound or costume or location departments or whatever allows film directors to be as individual and idiosyncratic and maybe sometimes a little crazy.
Well, Mr. Rickman, thank you so much for sharing your time with us. It was a very nice conversation.
Great pleasure for me. Thank you very much.